if you guys want my overall impressions with it, I'm super impressed with this camera. Hopefully this video is pretty fast, that it overheated on me. So, and on my first client shoot on it as well. So that was super embarrassing actually. And all right, yo, what's up guys? So today we're gonna be talking about the FX3 and my first impressions with it. So I've had the FX3 for a while now, like maybe around 3-4 months, but I haven't been shooting a ton with it, you know? But I have taken it on a variety of shoots, like fashion, events, music video, like controlled environments, and more run and gun environments, right? And I think I have some impressions on the camera. Not enough to really make a full comprehensive review, but enough to really just give you some idea of whether this is the right camera for you or not, right? So I think this video will be pretty insightful for anyone looking into the FX3.
My icy ho, my hula ho.
Yeah, let's just get right into the FX3, which is right here. This is the 28-75 with the top handle on it, and I don't know if you can notice, but I'm gonna get into it later, but there's some padding inside, like some tissue I use as padding. But yeah, basically some microphones don't fit in that well with this holder. Basically it's built for the K3M microphone or E3M, something like that. It's a microphone by Sony, and they have a top they have a XLR input for the A7 series for their hot shoe mount without the top handle. Basically this you've probably seen it if you're into the A7 cameras and you've thought about getting XLR input. But basically it was built for that, and they have been using this for a while now. But with that system, it comes with a mic, and this doesn't come with a mic. So that's something I'm gonna be going into in this video later on, but yeah, you just might have noticed it. But yeah, the first thing you notice about this camera is just the feel of it, you know, like the build quality and how it looks, how it feels and stuff. I mean, obviously it's like we are like visual people, and we do notice the physical first, right? So it is a bit heavier than the A7 III, which is what I'm shooting it with right now and what I've been shooting with. If you've been following the channel for a while, or if you follow my work, you know that I shoot almost all my stuff on the A7 III, and now, like more lately, some of my works have been on the FX3. So yeah, besides the weight, which is a good thing for video in my opinion, because there's like this trend, or at least I like using handheld. There's this trend towards going handheld, and if the camera's a bit heavier, it's just a bit more stable, right? So I do personally like the heavier feel of it, but sometimes people go for the mirrorless cameras because it is a bit more lightweight and a bit more compact, and I can see that argument as well, right? Especially actually for photography, but for videography, I don't mind it being a little bit more heavier, especially on non-run and gun scenarios, right? So if I'm shooting a documentary, sometimes I would like a heavier setup, sometimes I would like a more minimal setup. It just really depends on the situation, to be honest, but a lot of times I do like the heavier setup for video, right? So besides the weight of the camera, you actually really notice like what it's made out of and the premium feel of it, to be honest, right? So compared to the A7 III, it feels a lot less plasticky. There's still a lot of plastic on it, and plastic's not necessarily a terrible thing, but the camera body itself is like made more of a premium material, and the like gray is really nice, to be honest. I know kind of sounds like I'm circle jerking. I mean, black is an awesome color. Black is probably my color of choice, to be honest, but this gray is really nice right here. And yeah, just it feels a lot more premium, especially in the hands, especially the grip, right? The grip is a little heavier, I mean deeper. I mean, I already said the camera was heavier, but the grip is a little deeper right here. So it feels more comfortable for shooting video, in my opinion, and you can access the top easier when you have your grip like this, compared to the older cameras. But for this camera, they also put a lot of buttons on top, so they probably meant for that to happen, right? So yeah, it does feel a lot nicer. It feels heavier and just a bit more premium quality. Not that the older Sony mirrorless cameras felt cheap or anything, but this definitely feels a little bit higher quality. So even though everything feels a bit more higher quality, the top handle itself isn't very well built, in my opinion. I mean, the design of it is good, but the actual material is a bit plasticky. And actually my very first impressions of it didn't bother me that much, but after watching a boy with a camera talk a little bit about it,
Ooh,
That feels really plasticky, worse than I was expecting.
I did kind of notice it more, and especially like the microphone holder, not just the size itself, but the build quality is pretty bad. Like I stuffed the microphone in there and I think something clicked. I don't know if it was always like this. I don't know if you can see right here, but yeah, something clicked and I think it broke a little bit, you know. It's still intact for now, but it does feel a little cheap. And previously when I made this video in the past, I said like maybe the top handle is like a 7 out of 10. Like, you know, plastic isn't terrible, but like now this is like falling apart a little bit, and I just wish they put a little more effort into the materials of it. But the design is pretty nice and it like balances pretty nicely, right? Like the traditional top handle is more back heavy, I think, and this one is a little more balanced. But I will be going a little more into what I think about the top handle a little later on, how it can be improved. But yeah, it is a little cheaper. So what I do like about the top handle is it does feel pretty nice, right? Like it balances pretty well. But I'm talking about what I like about the camera, not what I dislike. But there's 3 audio inputs, 2 XLR and 1 3.5 millimeter jack. So you can get up to 4 audio channels theoretically with the Rode VideoMic Pro 2, and that is really impressive for like a camera this size. Like you basically have a audio recorder in this camera, which is insane to be honest, with 2 XLR inputs. Yeah, that's crazy. And you know, like I don't think XLR is as needed as it once was, but it is still more professional grade, and yeah, it's just nice to have it there. So actually I'm gonna switch cameras now so you can see what it looks like on the FX3 compared to A7 III. I will be doing like some maybe comparison B-roll and stuff, but yeah, you probably are here to see what the FX3 looks like, right? And I probably put like a lot of sample video, but you probably want to see like a more, it makes sense for this video to be shot on the FX3, right? So I just wanted to show you guys the FX3 itself, but yeah, let's just switch to FX3 in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we're shooting the FX3. I'll talk a little bit about what I'm currently using. So for audio, we're using the Rode Wireless Go, the first version, connected to a Daphene D3 Pro. I could just hook a lav and it'll probably be like 80% the same, but I just felt like doing this, you know. Maybe it encourages me to not use my hands in a silly manner as much, you know. But anyways, I'm shooting on the 35mm Sigma 1.4 Art series, but it is an adapted lens. It is adapted from the Canon EF mount on the not Metabones. I'm using the Sigma MC11. Updated like maybe 3 years, 2-3 years ago. I don't know if I have to update it to be honest, but autofocus seems fine, right? And I've been using it on a couple shoots and it seems fine as well. Like it's not as fast as native, but it is pretty damn fast where you wouldn't say, oh, this is slow, you know. And I do have a black Promus filter on it. Guess which one it is on the comments down below, and if you get it right, I'll follow you on Instagram or something. I don't know, I'll give you a meaningless prize. But yeah, I'll comment on 3 of your newest posts and give them likes and something fun, you know, something cool. Anyways, so going on with this first impressions video, the K3M is the normal one, the non-top handle one for the A7 cameras, the A7 series cameras like this one, and it's just this without the top handle. And it does come with a microphone, an XLR microphone, and I think this is just something not a lot of people have been talking about, or it's just something people like maybe kind of know or assume that you know, so they don't really emphasize it or bring it up as much. But the top handle of the FX3 doesn't come with a microphone, whereas the K3M does. So if you're comparing the price of the A7S III plus the K3M against the FX3, it's about the same. So you'd say, oh, I need the XLR input anyways, might as well go with the FX3. It's a no-brainer, right? But you don't get the microphone with it. And if you want to buy the Sony microphone, I believe is like a few $100s, and it's just something that I wish Sony really just, come on man, like throw us a bone here. I know we're not like entitled to anything, but and the camera like is more than worth the price, to be honest, if you want like my quick review of it. But it's just like you spend all this money, and to Sony, like in the grand scheme of things, like economies of scale, whatever, it probably means nothing to them if they just throw in the microphone there. But it's not a deal breaker or anything. But like I said, the hole is a little awkward, and it was built for their microphone, right? Like a lot of other microphones don't fit in there that well. Like this, the 83 Pro doesn't fit in there that well. So that is something to keep in mind. But it's not deal breaking. Like a lot of the press release models had the microphone that came with it. So I think I personally had the wrong impression that it came with a microphone, right? When I was watching other YouTubers talk about the video camera that Sony sent them, and they had it before it released, and it came with a microphone, right? So I thought it would come with a microphone, and it didn't, and that was a little bit disappointing, but nothing too major. So going on to the footage itself, so I'm sure I overlaid this video with a ton of other B-roll, but this video camera is really amazing. I haven't really had the chance to like really test it in different kind of scenarios, but so far I had a lot of experience with it, like fashion, daylight shooting, nightlight shooting, event shooting, low light shooting, studio setting shooting, whatever, a lot of different environments, and it's been handling it so well so far. So, and you know, like 10-bit compared to 8-bit, you'll never go back to 8-bit. Like a lot of people say, oh, it's not that much of a difference like before this camera came out, but when this camera came out, everyone's like 10-bit, not going back to 8-bit, and I can attest to that personally. And yeah, just the even something like more tangible, like the highlight roll off is a lot more nice. I feel like you can definitely see that more, and it's just the quality is just feels a bit nicer, you know. I think the bit rate is about the same as the ASM 3, maybe a bit higher, I'm not sure, but yeah, just I do think the quality has improved a lot. Like based on quality alone, it is worth an upgrade in my opinion. I've been mostly shooting on S-Log 3, which has dual native ISO, so I mostly use the dual native ISO, which is 640 and 12800, I believe. And yeah, it's just super helpful, you know. I just adjust everything else accordingly, and yeah, just having that dual native ISO is super nice, especially when on the A7 III, like on low light, it is really good at low light, but you will start noticing noise, especially in the shadows. So one thing I do want to point out about exposing S-Log 3 on low light is that I think you should overexpose a little bit more, because especially in the shadows, you do notice a little bit more noise, and that's just something I haven't really had an issue with when shooting in daylight or more evenly lit situations, right? So when you're shooting more low light or more moody stuff, I do recommend you overexpose a little bit. And just a general rule of thumb, like you probably do want to overexpose rather than underexpose, because when you lift the shadows, you can see the noise, and yeah, just the highlight recovery is a lot more nice on the newer cameras like the A7S III, FX6, FX3. So going to the menu system of the camera, the actual menu is really nice. It is a lot more comparable to Canon, I think a lot of people have said, and Canon was super breeze to get through. This had a little bit more learning to it because I was more used to the Sony system by now, but it was super easy to get used to, but a lot nicer than the Sony older system for sure. And as for like the physical layout of the buttons, I'm just so used to like this camera right now, so I'm so used, especially this back button record right here. I'm super used to that, so I kind of wish I had that, but honestly, these are just things you learn and unlearn, and for the most part, the button layout makes sense. I haven't really had any issues with it, but it hasn't been like super intuitive. But I think for someone who's getting into Sony or getting into video production, video cameras, whatever, and this is their first Sony camera or first video camera, it'll be super easy for them to get used to things, because especially they labeled a lot, like following other cinema cameras, they labeled a lot, and it's just super easy to follow, to be honest. And yeah, something I do want to point out, like a lot of people probably think the front button, record button, is more for vloggers and stuff, like people recording themselves in their studio, like what I'm doing right now, which I think I press that button when I record, but it is not just for that. Like sometimes you might have to put your camera in a more difficult position, and it's just a lot easier to press it and then record. You don't have to reach around the back and then you're not sure you're recording or not. And that's another tangent I want to get into, like you don't know you're recording or not. So with this camera you get tally lights, and I'm sure if you've done video production work you've ran into this problem before. Like almost everyone I know has ran into this problem, right? You think you're recording but you didn't hit record and you had to do a take over again, or sometimes it's that you can't retake it, it's like an event. And yeah, just having the tally lights there is that extra reassurance that's super nice. And yeah, just putting this camera on like maybe a top-down shot, and then I have to hit the front button and then I see the tally lights. That's a super easy way to record and super easy way to know that I'm recording, right? So yeah, those things are super nice. So another thing that this camera has that the older Sony cameras didn't have is it comes with a battery charger. And like, I don't want to sound entitled or anything, but honestly this is something that really should have come before, but now they've done like years without providing it, and now that they have provided it, it seems so novel and like something to talk about. But yeah, it's super nice to have the battery charger. Before I had to get third party, or you had to charge through the USB-C, micro USB, whatever. And yeah, it's just super nice to have a battery charger. Actually, like, it's underrated. So another thing about the FX3 is that you're probably going to be shooting a lot more 4K with it compared to the A7 III, where I shot a lot of 1080 actually, which is, to be honest, more than enough. But you're just going to be shooting a lot more 4K since it makes more sense, right? I think. And because on the older Sony cameras you probably wanted to shoot some slow-mo, but it only went up to 4K 30 in most cases, and now you get 4K 120, which is crazy, man. But there are two implications that come with shooting more 4K footage, which is, the first one is that it's going to drain through your battery a lot more quicker. So the NPZ 100 batteries, I believe, is what the A7 III uses, and basically what the Sony mirrorless camera uses now. And it is a great camera, so much better than what they were using before, but I've noticed that I have way less battery now, right? And it's not because the camera necessarily has takes a lot more input or whatever. Maybe it does a little bit, but it's more so the 4K footage, because on the A7 III I shot a lot more 1080 footage. So for like a half-day shoot, maybe I need 3 batteries instead of 2, and yeah, it's just, it'll probably drain through those V-mount batteries really quickly as well. Quicker, it's not like crazy quick like the Blackmagic camera. If you guys have any experience with that, you guys will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it does drain through battery a little bit quicker, but not crazy quick. But it is something to keep track of, And the second implication is that it's also going to drain through your memory card a lot quicker, right? So you get a lot more recording formats with this. You get Intra and non-Intra and H.265. So H.265 is the smallest files, but personally I don't recommend that unless you have maybe the new MacBook, because basically they are a lot more compressed and a lot harder to work with. So this is like going kind of off topic here and like a video on its own, but basically a lot of people have been saying like, oh, editing 4K footage is a nightmare. But to be honest, it's not the resolution that's a nightmare, it's the codec, right? It's how it's handled, how the file size is handled. So if you guys have had experience like editing with, especially with Blackmagic 4K footage, or another cinema camera like 4K footage, whatever, you'll notice that it's a lot nicer to work with. It plays back super smooth. You're not gonna have the same headaches you'd have with working with 4K footage from your Sony camera, and that's because of the codec. If you don't understand what I said, like, honestly watch some videos on like codecs and stuff, but I think I explained it pretty well. So basically you get Intra and non-Intra, which is the recording formats that I recommend, which is H.264, sorry, which is what the older Sony cameras use as well. So non-Intra was probably what you're used to if you use most like prosumer mirrorless cameras, but now you get Intra, which is completely new, and the way I would put it is somewhere between raw and non-raw footage. So it will play back a lot more smoother, but it's not like, it doesn't have as much data as raw footage. So not only will your memory card fill up a lot faster, but you also need the speeds to match the higher bit rates, right? So a lot of people got the SanDisk like maybe 60 V whatever. I don't think it's officially rated V60, but it has a pretty high speed, write read speed, like equivalent to V60, but it doesn't register as that and that's what I personally had. So you do have to switch, you do have to upgrade SD cards probably, and you have to get either V60 or V90 basically, right? If you know for a fact that you're not going to be shooting any Intra at all because you don't want the file sizes, or you don't want to be paying for a V90 card, which is pretty expensive, just get the V60, because the V60 is definitely the best bang for buck you're going to get. And the V90, I do think Intra shooting is worth it, so I do recommend you get one, especially if this is your profession, and like time matters, right? So if you're editing this footage, you want it to be played back smoother, and basically if you do a few jobs, the memory card is going to pay itself back. But yeah, just V90 cards are pretty expensive right now. Right now I'm recording this, but I do think they will get cheaper as time goes on. But if this is not really a profession for you, you're not getting a ton of jobs, or there's some other stuff on your list, just get the V60s. They're a lot cheaper. But personally, I do think Intra is worthwhile, even though I don't have like a ton of experience editing it, but I do have a lot of experience editing non-Intra. And I mean, if you've used the older Sony cameras or like any prosumer mirrorless camera, you know that the H.264 isn't great, you know. So that's just my opinion on it. And yeah, just get the Intra, get the V90 if you want to shoot Intra, which is, I think, worthwhile, but otherwise get the V60, more than enough. So another thing I didn't like about the camera is that you kind of have to tweak your settings a little bit more to get your shutter and aperture dials correct. You have to switch it to PASM mode or something like that. I think Chris Bronshurst or something like that talked about it. I'll link his video in the description down below, and I'll put a video overlay, but that's just something to keep in mind of. It's not as easy as going to the menu layout, whatever, and just changing it there. So my first impression on the camera is that it overheated on me. So, and on my first client shoot on it as well. So that was super embarrassing actually. And luckily I bought the A7 III with me just in case. And yeah, I was shooting on and off with it for like 2 hours. The camera didn't feel hot at all. This is touted as the camera that doesn't overheat, right? It has like an internal fan compared to the A7S III, which doesn't have an internal fan, and like people have been saying it doesn't overheat, right? So that was super disappointing, but apparently it's a super easy fix, and you have to go to change your auto temp settings or something like that, auto on settings to high or something like that. I'll put a video overlay and the solution in the comments down below, but basically the Sony Alpha channel made a separate whole video on this. So this is a problem a lot of people had. It's basically almost a non-issue because it's super easy to fix, but it just feels really stupid that it wasn't there by default, you know? Like the fan setting is set to auto by default, which is the best setting, because it's the highest setting basically, which was what I was checking when the camera overheated on me. But it's not related to the fan at all. It's related to this auto on setting or something like that. And yeah, the camera didn't feel hot, and it's touted as the camera that doesn't overheat. The fan was on and stuff, and it overheated, which is disappointing, but it's almost like a non-issue because it's super easy to fix. But yeah, I just thought I'd talk about that. I was shooting on the H.265, which is apparently a bit more intensive, but it shouldn't have overheated, to be honest. And I think the cameras that Sony are producing now should have that setting set to on by default, like maybe by a firmware update or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video is pretty fast. I know some of my videos are really long, and you guys just want to get cut to the chase, right? So if you guys want my overall impressions with it, I'm super impressed with this camera. I'm super happy that I got it. I'll probably be releasing a few more videos on the FX3, so let me know if you guys have any questions about the camera in the comments down below. But the quality is super impressive, low light, super impressive, stability, super impressive. Yeah, just there are a few drawbacks, but honestly, like, this is honestly the best overall video camera at this price range, and a no-brainer upgrade in my opinion if you're going from the A7 III or A7S II. These are still amazing cameras, but if you're doing professional work, I think this is a no-brainer upgrade in my opinion, right? So that's pretty much it. Yeah, questions, anything, like, comment, subscribe, everything, all that good stuff. Yeah, FX3, yeah.
Yeah, them chart, rock my nunsack, neon sec, I'm sick, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys want like a video on why I got the FX3 over the A7 S3, I'll probably make that, or why I picked it over like the Blackmagic or other cameras like a Z cam or something like that. Yeah, I don't feel ready to make a full comprehensive review, but I feel ready to make a few other videos about the camera, and yeah, pretty happy with the camera so far. So thank you for watching this far. Okay, bye. Bye for real.